Welcome back, everyone, for another episode of Kanan's Cadence. Today we've got episode three. Um, Today is October 9th, the day that I'm recording this, October 9th, 2025. Um, we're starting to really get into the actual fall season at this point. Temperatures over the last couple of weeks have still been kind of like summer-ish, where we've still had like mid to high 60s, mid 70s, high 70s on certain days and whatever. Where today, when I woke up, looked outside, it already kind of just struck me as like, oh yeah, this feels like a fall day. And then I check the temperature and I see that the high is going to be maybe like the mid to late high 50s or somewhere around there, and the low is in the 40s. And I'm like, okay, well, this is the first day where fall feels like it's really actually rolled around at this point. um, Fall for me is it's my personal favorite season in the year. Fall, autumn, I go back and forth with what I call them. Might end up doing that as I'm talking during this episode even, but one way or another, this is my favorite season in the year because I don't know, like, there are just several things about it for me. One of the main things is the fall colors, the fall foliage, as everyone puts it. The reds, the browns, the yellows, the changing leaf colors, and all that type of stuff. Give an example. Earlier this morning, I had to go to the DMV. Pretty smooth experience overall, which I was pleasantly surprised about because it was early. I didn't want to be out for all that long. Wasn't working, but I knew that I still had to go and do this stuff at the DMV. And on my drive, which was about a half hour drive to the DMV that I ended up going to, I had all these trees around me. There's a nice breeze that was taking plenty of these leaves off of the trees and just blowing them past my windshield. I was the only one on this stretch of the road, and there's just trees on both sides, like front and back at that as well. And I was just enamored the whole time. Like, fall is my favorite season, as I said, and that type of thing for me, like, one it's I guess the best way for me to put it is that for me, fall just really strikes me as like a really photogenic season is the thing. I find that any of the four seasons, all of the four seasons, I should say, are really, really beautiful in their own ways. But for me, it's just like the variety of colors that you get during fall in particular is one of my favorite things about it above the other seasons. If I had to say a second favorite, usually I will say fall and then spring. The reason why I don't choose summer or winter as like a favorite is because summer, for me personally, gets too hot, and winter can get too cold. It's obvious, basic reasons, but for me, that's just how it is. Also, winter, I love watching snowfall, but I hate anything that has to do with dealing with the snow after it's fallen, or sometimes even when it's falling. Especially as I got older, got to do more shoveling and snow blowing and all that type of stuff. Can't do that. And then summer, I think that it's great. When I was a kid, I loved it just because of summer vacation and whatever, as I figure most kids would, just being able to be away from school for a stretch of time and have more time to just goof off at home or with friends or whatever it is. But for me, summer again, it just gets too hot. I don't. I sweat very, very easily is the thing, and I hate dealing with that. I love it when it's not super humid, but oftentimes it really is super humid. And yeah, so winter, summer, they're good. Spring, I say, is my second favorite because for me, it's kind of like fall where it fits in between warm and cold. Spring, though, the thing that keeps me from liking it more is the fact that I prefer when the temperatures are tapering off as opposed to when they're climbing up. So, summer into fall, we're leading to winter. So, we're getting colder, should be getting colder at the very least. And then spring into summer, that's the that's where, of course, the temperatures are going to be climbing back up. So fall, that's the way to go for me. Today is a beautiful fall day, and it leads me into what I wanted to talk about with this particular episode, which is one of my newer found hobbies, at the very least, newer found hobby that I want to start exploring more at this point in my life, which is photography. I said before, I'm like, fall is a really photogenic time of year, in my opinion, and it gets me thinking about just these prospects of like getting to take some really nice photo ops if I'm on a walk like on a trail or something like that by myself or with like a friend or something like that, I want to just stop and take pictures of basically everything that I see, whether it's just the trees, like how they're looking, the animals as they're running by, depending on where I am. it's, animals might be a bit more scarce, but that depends. Um, but yeah, and like I just wanted to start doing more with photography in general is kind of where I'm getting at with this. So let me take it back the same type of way that I have with my previous two episodes, just reflect for this time just like briefly. But ever since I was young, I have always been enamored with the idea of photography. It's something that I didn't really think too much about until recently, but I realized that it has always been with me. Um, Whenever I had the chance to like I don't know, just I don't like being in pictures exactly, but I've always liked taking them. So whenever I am given a camera, not just like a phone camera as everyone has nowadays, but more specifically if it's like a Polaroid or a digital or something like that, um, I always try my very best to properly frame a shot. And that is quote unquote proper because, like everyone, any type of photographer is going to have their own idea of how a shot should look and what should be like the focal point and all that type of stuff. I'm no master photographer, like by any means. In fact, I would absolutely say that I'm very, very much a beginner when it comes to this sort of thing. But it's just always been like a point of fascination for me. When I was in high school, I remember taking a digital photography class, and the reason that I wanted to sign up for that class was because I was like, "Wow, I'm gonna get to use a digital camera, like go around, take pictures, and then apply that to my schoolwork and all that type of stuff." That's not actually how the class ended up being, unfortunately. It was more digital photography in that we were pulling pictures largely from from the internet and putting them into Photoshop and like messing around with that program and like manipulating the picture to what we needed to do for a particular assignment. And I still had fun with that, but I wanted more of like the actual being able to go and take pictures. I know that I got to do that maybe once or twice in that class, and I enjoyed it. It's just a 1 quarter long class, so like it was only 10 weeks, didn't last a whole long time, but I made the most of it with what I was able to do because I like playing around with photo editing, but I want to do more with actually taking the pictures. And my mom a while back. I can't remember exactly when this was, but part of like a business that she was working on some time ago, maybe like a decade or so ago. I remember like she was doing a lot more with camera work and photography and all that, and like that was part of the thing. That was part of the reason that I started to think about it more when I was mid to end of high school and stuff. And then, of course, I went away to college. I started studying music. I'll cycle back to, again, like those music details in another episode, the college and beyond stuff. But studying music in college definitely shifted my priorities. So I actually, for a long time, forgot that I even liked taking pictures and all that type of stuff. And then also, I guess part of it as well is gonna probably make me sound older than I actually am, which I get that a lot as well. Just the ease of access to like cell phones and like smartphones, cameras, all that type of stuff that everyone has just readily available kind of took the allure away from it for me in some way as well. Because I was like, okay, well, I always have my phone with me, so I always have a camera with me. And even though the iPhone or the Android, whatever phone I had, like is just gonna take some good pictures, depending on the camera that it's got. I don't know, like, it just didn't feel as special to me. And still to this day, pictures taken with my phone don't feel nearly as special as a picture taken with a camera. So going back a couple months, back into July, about 3 months ago, I decided because I was going on a solo trip to Washington, D.C. for a concert, but it was the first time that I was ever in D.C. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to want to see the monuments and all that type of stuff. So let me go and get just a camera, like a very, very beginner camera, not too expensive, but I didn't want to go like so cheap that it was going to be like a $20 disposable camera or something like that. No, I wanted something that would be effective enough for someone who is trying to take some actual steps into the world of photography and camera work and all that type of stuff. So I remember I had gone to Walmart. I was researching a couple ones that could be pretty solid for me to start with as someone who's never like professionally thought about photography until just earlier this year, and I ended up getting myself a Kodak Pix Pro. Again, very entry level, very beginner camera, but for me, it as someone who doesn't know all the intricacies and all that type of stuff, it's something that it kind of goes over my own head in a lot of ways. I know how to take pictures. I know how to get to my gallery. I know how to adjust the white balance even though I don't fully know what that means yet. Again, I'm still learning. But one of the main reasons why I wanted to get a camera itself, again, aside from the stuff that I've already mentioned, I did briefly say just now that I have never thought of professionally taking pictures, working with a camera and all that type of stuff until earlier this year. So just to flash back a little bit again, as I've already said, I graduated from SUNY Potsdam, the Crane School of Music, with a bachelor's degree in music performance. And all my friends that I went to that school with were always asking me, like, hey, what are you going to do in grad school? And my answer was always like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm even going to go to grad school. And then eventually my answer became, well, I'm not going to go to grad school or consider what I'm going to study until I have something that I'm dead set on. Because I'm at a point now where I'm like, finances are tight and I'm not going to go to grad school, which is a completely voluntary thing for me, pay for a degree that I'm not going to be passionate about, and then regret it later on once I'm hit with more loans for this thing that I'm not even passionate about. So I fiddled around for a long time with the idea of like, okay, well, I could study if it's in the music field, like I could try to be like a saxophone professor or something like that at a college, or I could go back and like do more education stuff, try to get a job in a school. I'd even come to be like, okay, well, maybe I can study like sound production because I love audio and all that type of stuff. Or I could do, I don't know, I was even thinking of like music therapy or something like that, or being an entrepreneur in the music field. And eventually, it kind of just hit me. I was like, well, the fact that I haven't chosen anything music related to do in grad school at this point, and I've been out of college for close to 5 years at this point, maybe that means that studying music in grad school is not the way to go for me. Maybe that's what it means. And I slept on that thought and it kind of just resonated with me more. I was like, no, I don't need to study music. I have a degree in music already. Music is always going to be part of my life, no doubt. But why don't I try to explore a different type of passion? And then I started messing around more with like cameras and I was watching a bunch of documentaries and I realized that I love documentaries and I was hit with the thought of like what if I were to try and make my own documentaries down the line. And that idea just excited me so much that I was immediately like that's it. That's it. Like it was just like a light bulb, like not even like light bulb, like strobe light going off in my brain. And I was like, that's the one. That's what you got to do. So eventually for grad school I do aim to study film and media is the thing, and hopefully with the end goal of being able to like produce my own documentaries, or at the very least, well, starting out work on my own documentaries, but I want to be able to put them out, maybe do like my own type of narration with them too, but then like conducting interviews and just putting it all together. Like I love that concept. So yeah, I was like, yeah, working with a camera. That's what I want to do. Work with a camera. But I got to start somewhere because I realized after that, I was like, okay, well, I have no experience in this field. Like, basically at all, like professionally, intermediary, anything like that. I don't have any type of like actual experience there. And me being who I am, like, I will overthink that so hard if I allow myself to, where I'm like, okay, well, if I have no experience in it, that means that I can't do it, right? And no, I'm refusing to let myself grip to that concept because that's going to just slow me down or like deter me from even trying to actually go for that. And the fact that it's something that I really do feel like a deep passion for, the more and more that I talk about it, even right now, just like the idea of it is like super exciting to me. It's like really, really compelling. So I'm like, no, no, I'm gonna go for that, and I'm gonna get the experience however I can. So back to my Kodak camera that I've had for the last like 3 or so months. Anytime that I get a chance to, right now, just to get myself familiar with like even just the feeling of a camera and like swapping through its settings and all that type of stuff. Anytime I get a chance to just like take it out and take a picture, I aim to do that. I slacked with that over like through the end of the summer into the fall until just maybe I want to say even this morning. It wasn't until I was driving to the DMV that I was like, man, I haven't used my camera in a little bit. It's not since the end of August, I remember. I'd gone on a walk around a beach trail, and I just, the walk, the entire purpose of it was for me to just be like, okay, well, let me get myself out there and just test my camera eye, is the way that I ended up putting it to myself. Because I feel like I have a pretty solid idea of what a good shot looks like to me. Again, that goes back and forth for every person. Anyone who wants to take pictures, it's never ever going to be the same type of thing. That much I can say easily. So for me, I have an idea of how I want a shot to look, how I want to frame it, how I want it to be lit. The problem is that I need to actually get myself out there taking the pictures and then back to a computer and doing some editing so that those visions can actually come together. And I don't do enough of that. So that's the whole reason I went to that park trail. If I wasn't in my car, I would have done the same thing when I was driving to the DMV through all these like fall foliage trees and that type of stuff because that was beautiful. I even do it in video games. So just a couple days ago as an idea. So last Thursday, and I'd mentioned, I just purchased Ghost of Yote. That game has been a lot of fun. It is fantastic, and this is a tangent, but I do prefer it over Ghost of Tsushima, which was another game that I loved. Anyway, the game the game has a fantastic photo mode, and it has the most beautiful landscapes that I've seen in a game in a long time. Just like the rolling hills and like these trees, these fields, like these wide open flat fields, and all the flowers and all that type of stuff. You have Mount Yote in the background, like constantly just watching over you and such. Um, no matter how far away you are from it, like that's it's almost like an Elden Ring type of thing where you have like just this huge, huge center point of the map that you can see from wherever you are. And just like in Elden Ring, when I would be like, okay, well, that's a great photo op. Ghost of Yote, I was doing the same type of thing, and I ended up taking a picture just of these rolling hills because it was I was just like, wow, this right here is fall. Like you have like the reds, the greens that are turning into the reds and the browns and all that type of stuff, just rolling across this landscape. You have the sunset in the background, and then you have Mount Yote poking over it. I'm like, okay, this is a video game, and yet I feel like I'm actually there. With my camera in hand, taking a picture, and I would have done it as a panoramic if I was there because the landscape just was so vast and I'm like there's so much that I want to cover here. And it was when I took that picture, this is maybe 2 or 3 days ago at this point, I was like, wow, I really really need to get back out and like start taking more pictures again. It's been too long. um and the other thing with it, part of why I've been slacking with it, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, I've been lazy with it because I didn't want to go places. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to be taking pictures, that means I got to drive somewhere. I got to like leave my car. I got to walk and all that type of stuff. And then I stopped myself and I'm like, no, I don't. I don't have to do that at all. Like, that's just an excuse for me to not do this thing that I'm very passionate about. And like, I'm allowing myself to recognize that I really, really do enjoy the ideas of just taking pictures and holding like a camera that's not my cell phone and stuff. So what did I decide to do earlier today, and connecting it to this podcast at that is. I decided that for each podcast episode that I put up, and again, like this is, I'm putting it out there, so that means I got to commit. For each podcast episode that I put out there, I want for as many of them as I can, at the very least, to just like not reach too high. So like bring it down from 100% to maybe about 70%. But anyway, I want to take my own pictures to use for the thumbnails at the very least to get myself started with this. So I already put up episodes 1 and 2, both on Spotify and YouTube. And I intend, by the time that this one goes up, it'll likely already be done, but I intend to go and at the very least change the thumbnails that I used on YouTube for each of these episodes to capture something that has to do with what I'm talking about in that particular episode. So for episode 1 where I spoke about like music and all that type of stuff, like beginner music stuff, I have a picture of my tenor sax in its case that I aim to use. For the video game stuff that I spoke about in episode 2, I have a picture of my PlayStation 1, my PlayStation 2, and my Game Boy Advance. And each of those, if you look closely, you can see that the PS2 has Kingdom Hearts 2's disc in it. The PS1 has Spyro 2's disc in it. And while the Game Boy Advance, I wanted to turn it on, but the battery's dead. The cartridge that's in the Game Boy is Pokemon Fire Red. So the three, like the big three that I spoke about in that episode, those are the games that are featured in each of those consoles in this picture. So again, like the ideas are there in my head. I just have to use them. And I have to, one of the biggest things for me is that I can't be afraid to use them. I hold myself back quite a bit from doing stuff that would be like stepping out of a comfort zone, as anyone would, but like I hold myself back and I create these excuses, and I'm really really doing my best now to not let myself continue to sink into that trap, because I'm never going to go anywhere. And that, when it comes to the photography, that like is like layered, like it has two meanings. Like I'm never going to go anywhere in terms of like I'm not going to progress with it, with the photography, if I keep overthinking it. But then the other hand of it is I'm like actually not going to physically go anywhere to take these pictures if I think too hard and I'm like, okay, well, I don't know that that's something that I can do. Just because I have like very very basic knowledge of photography doesn't mean that I can't be a photographer, is a thing, or a videographer or something like that, a documentarian, which is what I'd like to do down the line, ideally. So that's where I'm kind of at with that. And I want to, I will, again, I'm saying it now so that I put it out there, I will make it a point to go and do more camera work, just around and like during my free time, whether it's in my house, in my backyard, in my neighborhood, on a walk, or if I have to drive somewhere just for the sake of taking these pictures and stuff. And for anyone who's listening, for anyone who sees me in my like day-to-day life, who hears me saying these things that I aim to commit to, don't be afraid to just call me out on it when you see me as well. Just be like, hey, that thing that you said in your podcast episode, make sure that you do that, because like I will probably end up needing that sort of thing too. That's why I'm forcing myself to say it now. Or you can send me a text, you can message me on Instagram, whatever it is. Just be like, hey, make sure that you go and stick to these things that you said that you would stick to. And I'm gonna be like, okay, that's right. That's the whole reason that I'm saying it now. So, yeah, but like, where do I even want to go with photography? I have a couple of, and like, I mean, like physically, like, where would I like to go to take some pictures? So, like, I have some, I'm like making a list of places that I'd like to visit. But uh, I would absolutely love to get some recommendations from any of you listening as well. Just like places that you think would be good for me to go and just like see. Like take some pictures, panoramics, or even like videos of like what I'm doing there and all that type of stuff. Just like throughout Long Island, like we can start there because that's the easiest way and probably the least expensive way for me to like go places and get some good pictures is if I stay like within the confines of my home. But yeah, I'm absolutely open to suggestions. Like I have some lighthouses I want to visit. Want to go out to Montauk probably. Like that's the obvious one, but that's a long drive. I got to actually plan for when I would do that sort of thing too. But yeah, like my ideas are limited. is a thing. So I am open to suggestions. I'll say that one more time. So yeah, but I'm gonna be wrapping it up with this episode in just a second here. Um, I have other ideas that I plan to talk about over the next couple of weeks. Like I'm starting to like keep a running list of like, okay, well, I want to talk about this. This person told me to talk about that. This is something that I have many things to say on, so I'm gonna make sure to talk about that. So yeah, I'm keeping a running list. I'm trying to get myself more organized with this whole podcasting type thing because it's been fun. I've gotten good feedback, which again, like I said last week, thank you so much for all the positive remarks that I've gotten, the words of support, the suggestions that some of you have. Again, like you know who you are, and I promise you, I will get to these things that you're telling me to talk about. These stories that I got to revisit, college specifically, I will get to them. But yeah, again, like really, thank you so much for listening. It's been a lot of fun. I will keep it going. And again, like I said just a second ago, I'm gonna work to get myself more organized so that it feels more like a legitimate podcast that I'm doing. Like I got a very basic setup right now, and it's going to stay basic until maybe it's not. Maybe I start to actually implement some of my ideas and I make it a little bit better. So, yeah, anyway, got to call it a wrap right there. Thanks so much for listening. Have yourselves a wonderful remainder of your day, night, whatever it is, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.